All right, so good evening, everybody. So this is Vignesh Ganesan on behalf of C Corner Chennai Chapter. So my session today would be on getting started with Microsoft Office 365. All right, so let's get started with our session today. So we are on time now. So that's a little bit about myself. So I'm a SharePoint and Office 365 technical specialist. That's the core work that I do. In addition to that, I do some active blogging on C Corner, as well as I write articles for Collab 365 community, and that's my own blog site there. So I write articles on SharePoint, Office 365, SQL, Windows Server, and that's my Twitter handle and Facebook. If at all you guys want to follow me and give me a buzz. All right. So this is a core agenda for today's session. All right. So I'll be giving a small introduction on what Office 365 is all about. All right. So, and then I'm gonna spend few minutes talking about the core features and services in Office 365, so that we get to understand all those features and services. And then I'll be showing a small demo on the new Office 365 Admin Center. So folks who have been working on Office 365 for quite some time, you know that the Admin Center has changed. Now it's the new Admin Center, right? I believe it's at least a year since Microsoft rolled out the new Admin Center. And I'm going to spend a few more minutes talking about what's new in Office 365, what are the new features, services, capabilities, and functionalities which Microsoft introduced in Office 365. And there will be a demo on those new features as well. If I'm not able to show all the new features, at least the key features, I would be giving a demo on that. And I'm going to talk on identity management as well, because that's really the key. I think that is very important, right? And then finally there will be a recap, and I'm going to conclude. So this is our agenda for today's session. So let's get started. So the targeted audiences for today's session would be IT administrators, right? So maybe you're an IT administrator or system administrator for your company, and you're taking care of all the IT tasks in your in your company. So, and you're also given the role of managing Office 365 services, right? So I have some pretty good insights for you in today's session, and it's for Office 365 administrators and developers as well, right? So if you're given the task of managing SharePoint Online or Exchange Online or any Office 365 services, I have some insights for you today, and for developers as well. And for folks who are new to Office 365, right? So it's just not meant for folks who have been working with Office 365 for quite a few years, right? So it's also for folks who are new to this terminology called Office 365, folks who would like to understand more about what Office 365 is all about, and other roles as well. Okay, so it's just not meant for technical people who sort of do their roles as SharePoint, as Exchange, or Skype for Business. Maybe you're a business user in your organization where you work on a lot of Office docs, or maybe your IT department recently rolled out Office 365, and there are a lot of core features and services on it, and you just don't know how to use it, right? So I'm going to show you how to use those new features so that it can enhance the way you do work. All right, so before we go ahead and talk in detail about what Office 365 is all about, let's try to refresh our brains with what cloud computing really is, right? I'm pretty sure everybody in today's who's attending my session now would be aware of what cloud computing is, but let's try to refresh ourselves. So as you can see on the slide, yeah, it's a buzzword. A lot of people keep talking about it in today's IT world, right? And it's really cool. If at all you've been working with cloud for quite some time, you know that it is the greatest and coolest technology our generation has ever seen, and it creates highly paying jobs. So that is indeed a truthful statement to make, because the average salary which a guy he gets for a person who works on cloud services like Azure or Office 365 or AWS, right? They tend to get paid more than than a person who is working on a different technology. And possibilities are that you could even end up losing your job if you do not have a cloud skill set in today's IT world. Okay. And last but not least, yes, cloud has been mentioned as the top 5 technology trends to watch out in the next 4 to 5 years by many industry experts. So that is sort of a generic overview of what cloud computing is, but let's get into the real meat of what really cloud computing is, right? So any service or solution that is delivered in real time over internet is called as a cloud service. So what I mean by that is, maybe you as a consumer, right, you are not aware of how that service is configured on the back end. You don't know who's the person who configured it, and you're not aware of how that entire setup has been done. Your job as a consumer is you just have a web browser or any application which connects to the cloud service and you're using it. So any service which comes in that format is called as a cloud service. So these are the basic building blocks of the various cloud computing services. We have the SaaS model, we have the PaaS, as well as the infrastructure as a service, right? So that's a small image of how these services look like. So software as a service, right? So that is the first service which came out in the cloud computing world. Okay, so the application is provided by the service provider and you get to access it over the web browser, right? If you think about your Gmail or your Hotmail, right, you're not aware of who set up those email configurations, where is your mailbox, how things are set up there. Your job is you either access it from your mobile browser or your laptop browser or your PC browser, or you have any applications, your mobile apps for Gmail or something. So any service which comes in that format where you can just use your service by accessing the by going to the internet browser or any app, then it is called as software as a service. So platform as a service is where the entire application is hosted and you can use that for developing and deploying cloud-based solutions. So this is where it gets really tricky, because most of the time when I speak to my peers, they tend to confuse themselves within what PaaS and IaaS is. They look almost similar together with a small difference, right? If you think about database as a service in Azure, right? So the Windows Server is there, SQL is installed on it, and Microsoft just gives you the database so that you can use that database to store your content, or you can do any kind of development stuff on that database. So platform as a service is nothing but wherein you can use that application and develop something on it and make use of that for your business. Okay, so there are a few examples which I've given down. And then infrastructure as a service. So let's get to understand what infrastructure as a service really is, because again I see a lot of confusion among understanding this, right? So infrastructure as a service is nothing but it's just a substitute for your data center. It's as simple as that. All right, so let's not try to get into real big details and try to understand what this thing is all about, but it is just a substitute for your data center, wherein you don't need to build your VM machines, have a big data center there. You have to appoint a guy to take care of all the data center stuff, and that's not at all needed. So this infrastructure as a service is going to take care of all those things. It will act as a good substitute for that. So we have Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, so many vendors to do that. Even IBM has its own cloud. So a cloud service from an end user view. So this is how end user would be seeing the 3 different models in cloud. So infrastructure as a service is basically for folks who work as network architects, infrastructure architects, who tend to take care of set up the entire infrastructure. And for application developers, we have the PaaS model, and SaaS is for everybody, right? It could be a normal user, he could be a business user, he could be a technical user, so he could be anyone. So it's meant for everybody. All right, so our session today is on Office 365. So let's try to understand what really Office 365 is all about, right? So I believe this technology came out roughly somewhere around 2011, if I'm not wrong. So this Office 365 is nothing but, right, it's a suite by Microsoft, a SaaS suite by Microsoft, which gives you Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Link Online, Project, Office Pro Plus, and there are many other features and services which comes along with it. Okay, so if at all you're a guy who's working as a SharePoint guy, or maybe you're working on Exchange servers, or maybe you're working on Skype, you really know what is the pain you have to go through for building a SharePoint farm or an Exchange server or an Exchange environment, right? It's not really that easy for you to set up a SharePoint farm which has 10 to 15 servers. I believe you at least have to spend a couple of months to build that environment perfectly fine. The same goes with Exchange, the same goes with Link or any other infrastructures, right? So Office 365 is something which is trying to close the gaps, right? So you as a person or an admin, you don't need to spend all your time in building the entire infra, right? It's going to take care of all those things because everything is built by Microsoft in their own data centers. And you as a consumer, you're just going to make use of those apps in real time. All right, so that's how simple Office 365 is. Okay. And yes, so it's your complete Office on the cloud, right? So you get, as I said, you have your SharePoint, Exchange, Skype for Business, Office Pro Plus, right? So, and there are, you get your Visio Pro, Project Pro. There are so many services which Office 365 offers. So in a, in a simple word, it's your complete Office in the cloud. Okay, so as I was just talking, right? So what are the features you get along with these Office 365, right? So any average user would use Office 365 for many purposes, right? So maybe some would be using Office 365. Maybe they are working on a documents every day. They are working with Word documents. They are working with PowerPoint. They are working with Excel, right? So yeah, you can leverage Office 365 for that. And then you have your Outlook. You have your Exchange Online, Outlook, and Yammer, where you can use your Outlook as an emailing solution, and then Yammer is the social enterprise within your organization. So that is within Office 365 now. And then you get your team sites and your OneDrive for Business to store your documents and share it with your peers or with your customers or clients or your stakeholders. And then you have your Skype for Business or Microsoft Teams, which takes care of your chat workspace. If at all you want to chat with you, that is something which we do every day in our works, right? And then finally we have analytics, right? So I think any product should have analytics these days because because only then you get to understand how you're using that service, right? And so even Office 365 has a rich analytics interface, and you have your Power BI as well as My Analytics. Yeah, so Office 365 is obviously built for hyperscale, which means this product is capable of handling a large amount of load, which is something even beyond our imagination, right? I don't think there is any other product, any other SaaS product which can handle this much amount of load, but yes, Office 365 is built to handle all these kind of loads. So those are some numbers there, all right? So it's 300 billion user authentications are handled, and 200 billion emails are being analyzed, and then you have 110 plus of Skype meetings going on. So those are huge numbers, and that's a lot of data which is going on within the Office 365 services. And all those spots which you see there on the world map, so those are the places where your Office 365 data centers are set up. So what happens in Azure is when you're trying to deploy a VM box, or maybe you're trying to deploy a server, right? So you as a guy, as an IT person, you would be saying, all right, so maybe I want my server to sit in North America, or want my server to sit in India, right? So that is how it works in Azure. But in Office 365, it's your billing address, right? While you're using the tenant, while you're signing up for the tenant, it'll be asking you, it'll be giving you the different locations like the United States, Tokyo, whatever it is. So whatever address you choose there, that is going to be your billing address in Office 365. So it is different from what you see on Azure. Yeah, so right from the day the product has been out, Microsoft has been sticking to this SLA, right? So there has, at least in my experience, I've never seen any day wherein Microsoft tend to go lesser than this SLA. So their SLA is always 99.98%, and they are working towards making that as 4 nines now, right? So it's going to be 99.99%. And Microsoft engineers, and they are really doing a lot amount of work to make sure that the service is totally up for all its consumers. So So 70 million Office 365 commercial monthly active users. That's a lot amount of users who are using Office 365, right? So this really means that there are a lot of companies who are investing in Office 365. They want to move their entire IT infra towards the cloud, because in Office 365 everything is already set up, and you as a consumer, you can just go ahead and use it, rather than you spending time and spending time and a lot of money in building your SharePoint or Exchange or Skype for Business, or be it anything. That's a lot of work which you have to do. But when it comes to Office 365, everything is already set up, and you don't need to spend your time doing that. Say, all right, I just keep speaking a lot about Office 365. It has this, it has that. Yeah. All right, we all understand that. What is the need? First of all, we need to, before we are going to use any service, we need to understand that what is my end goal? Why do I even need to go ahead and buy this service, right? So what am I trying to prove by this? What am I trying to achieve by this, right? So that's the question which we all have in our mind before you move towards any new service, right? All right, so the reason is here. See, while you're working in a company, there is going to be a lot of projects, there are going to be a lot of users, there are going to be a lot of teams, and each group and team might have their own purpose, right? So there might be some teams who would just work on chat, right? They just want to chat with their folks. They want to get their things done over the chat. They are not really much concerned, or they're even lazy to write emails. Okay, so they just want to get things done over the chat. And on the other side, there might be people who are just using SharePoint to dump their documents, right? And they don't really get involved much in chatting or sending email to their peers or their stakeholders and all. Okay. On the other side, we have users who are, sort of working on Office docs, and then we have a need for meetings, right? So that'll be maybe you're a director or maybe a big VP in your company, wherein you have to handle a lot of meetings every day, a lot of video conferences. So if you think from an IT perspective, right? So always the purpose keeps changing. There is always not a single goal saying, right, all right, I'll deliver SharePoint. You guys can do whatever you want within this. So that's not the way it's going to work, right? So the purpose is always going to change. And Office 365 is the one which is going to tie all these gaps together, right? Because if you think about the complete service, right? Once you buy Office 365 for your company, you can just leverage Exchange Online for folks who are really, because I think anyway, everybody needs emails in today's world, right? So nothing is possible without your email. So you can get your Outlook, and then maybe you want to use SharePoint for your team, right? And there are a lot of people, maybe they say, you know what, I have a new project, and I have some 10 to 15 members in my team, and I want a SharePoint site so that I can store all the documents or any customer related content on it. Yeah, of course, you can go ahead and give them a SharePoint site so that they can make use of it. And then Skype for your meetings, right? If at all you want to use, let's say you want to chat with your peers, or you want to have some meetings, right? So you can make use of Skype. Then you have your Microsoft Teams, then you have your Yammer, right? These are the new things which came in Office 365. As we move further in this session, I'll be talking more about what is Yammer, what is Microsoft Teams, Office 365 groups. So I have some slides on that as well. So we'll talk in detail about that. So these are the main 4 pillars of Office 365, right? So yes, it's meant for collaboration, right? So you within your organization, the way you work is you always collaborate with your peers. So when I say peers, it doesn't mean that they should be sitting right next to you. They could be located on a different geographical location. Maybe you're sitting in India. Let's say I'm sitting in Bangalore here. I have my peers in US. I have my peers on the other side of the world, right? So obviously I need a system to collaborate with them, right? So yes, Office 365 is obviously meant for collaboration, and mobility is really big in today's world, right? So be it any service, it should be as handy as possible. You should be able to get things done on your mobile, because it's not really possible for you to sit right in front of your PC every day and get things done, right? So maybe you're traveling somewhere, you're on the way to your work, right? And all of a sudden someone is asking, hey, I need this email to be done from you. Yes, you should be able to open your mail on your mobile phone and get things done. Okay. And then intelligence. Yeah, so any service is really worth it unless and until it's not really intelligent, right? So if you think about Office 365, there is a lot of intelligent stuff which is going on. You have your machine learning, you have your artificial intelligence, so you have all those stuff in Office 365 as well. And last but not least, trust. So none of these three features really matter unless and until you trust the service, right? So I can come up with all kind of fancy terms saying Office 365 can do this, it can do that, it can, really enhance your business, it can take your business to the next level. But really, trust really matters, right? Unless and until you trust the service, you're not really going to invest on it and use that for your business, okay? So let's talk in detail about the collaboration part of Office 365. So yes, we have your email and Exchange, right? So you have your Exchange Online, which takes care of your email and calendars, and then you have your SharePoint to store your documents, and then you have your Skype to take care of your voice and video conferences. And of course you have Yammer, because if you think about Yammer, I'm not sure how many of you folks use Yammer actively in your organization. If not, I urge you all to start using Yammer, because that is the enterprise solution for your whole company. Let's say if Facebook is meant for you guys to collaborate with the rest of the public, with your friends and all, so Yammer is something which can be used within your organization. And yes, we have Office 365 Pro Plus, which is nothing but your Word, PowerPoint, Excel, right? And Office 365 Groups. Okay, so this is a new term which came up, a new application which came up in Office 365. As I said, I have a different slide coming up on this later in this session, so I'll be talking in detail about Office 365 Groups at a later point of time. Yeah, so SharePoint. As you all guys already know, it's meant to store your documents, and you can do a lot of collaboration with SharePoint, wherein you have a team site for yourself. You can dump your documents, you can have workflows, you can have lists, you can have libraries. A lot of things keeps going on within SharePoint, because if you think about SharePoint as a product, it's the leader in enterprise content management. So even Office 365, since it's a product of Microsoft, it's also tied with Office 365. And then email and calendaring using your Outlook, as I said, right? So in Office 365, what happens is you have these new features called as focus inbox, clutter, and then you have at mentions, and I have a demo on this, on really how this works in Outlook. So when I'm doing that demo, you guys will try to understand how these things really work in Exchange Online. So your OneDrive, right? So most of the time what happens with this OneDrive is, people try to confuse themselves within their personal OneDrive as well as with their OneDrive for business, right? You always have a consumer version of your OneDrive as well as your OneDrive for business. Your personal OneDrive is something wherein you need to have a Hotmail account or a Live account, and you can store all your personal documents there. Wherein your OneDrive for business is nothing but it's an offline copy of your contents which you have in SharePoint. You can sync all your documents there, and maybe you can log into a different PC somewhere. Maybe it could be a kiosk machine, and you can see those documents, or you can log into the OneDrive app using your mobile, and you can see those documents. So there is no need for you to always sit in front of your workstation at the office and get things done. Maybe you're at work, you can just open your OneDrive using your internet browser, and you can start working on a document, right? So yes, so OneDrive is just it's storage. So cloud communications with Skype, as you always know, so that is the chat workspace which we all use in our day-to-day work. We keep pinging our peers, we keep talking to our friends, or there is a lot of stuff which we can do with Skype, right? And you have this PSTN. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of PSTN in Office 365. So what happens is, the way you normally have Skype calls by pinging, by your contacts in Skype, you can also call your call mobile numbers and phone numbers. So PSTN is available in the US. It's not available right now in India, but that is also integrated with Office 365. And then you have your cloud PBX. So that's a new journey which Microsoft started recently, which is called as Private Branch Exchange. I think every company has its own PBX, right? So let's say if you're dialing any organization, right, it's going to say, tell me your party's extension. So, or at all, if you know the person's extension, please dial him, right? So that's called as PBX. So even that's possible in Office 365. That is something recently which Microsoft rolled out, and it's slowly consumers have started using it. And meeting broadcasts, because earlier you think in Skype, I think the limitation was 250 members, if I'm not wrong. That could be only 250 participants for a meeting in Skype, whereas in broadcast, right, so you can have up to 10,000 folks joining a broadcast, right? So maybe your CEO in the company, he wants to give a speech to all the folks in the organization, then they can make use of broadcast, meeting broadcast. They actively use that within Microsoft actually. As I said, Skype across devices. So even as far as Skype is concerned, maybe there is a meeting setup and you're traveling in your cab, right? So you can just open the Skype for Business app from your mobile and you can join the meeting, or you can chat with someone while you're traveling. So it could be used from your iPad or your iPhone or any mobile device. So that's possible. So Skype can be across, accessed across many devices. And I said Yammer. So most of the time when Yammer recently came up, right, so people didn't have an understanding of what is the real purpose of even using Yammer, right? So what do I even do with Yammer? I understand that it's an enterprise collaboration platform, right, wherein, but what is the real need of even having Yammer, right? If you ask me what Yammer is all about, let's say you as a guy, you recently joined a new firm, and you're sort of not aware about certain things, right? So when you're newly joining a company, there is going to be a lot of questions within your mind. So where do I go and meet this guy? Where do I go and meet this person? There is a lot of, maybe someone asks you, you just go ahead and check with this department and they can get things done for you, right? So Yammer is nothing but for you to post any generic question. All right, or let's say you acquired some new skill sets to yourself and you're looking for a project, right? Within my company, I see people using Yammer a lot. For the most case, it's for them to search any new projects. Maybe they are out of their project, so they keep posting that, you know what, I have this skill set, I'm out of the project now, so I'm looking for this project in this location. So if at all anybody knows, please let me know, right? So Yammer can be used in those purposes, right? So it's so that you get to collaborate with everyone in the firm, and it's just not limited within your team or within your service line. It's really widespread, and you can just collaborate with others. So mobility, right? So as I already spoke, any service is really worth it, and only when it is, only when you can get it over your mobile, because in today's world, it's not really possible for you to sit right in front of your workstation or your laptop every now and then and get things done, right? So things should be really accessible over your mobile. Only then it's really worth it. Yes, so in that case, Office 365 is really mobile handy. You can get all of your stuff done right from your mobile device, be your Android device, your BlackBerry, or your iPhone. You can get things done there. So that's the Outlook client, your mobile client. So whatever features you get in your normal Outlook client when you access it from your laptop or a PC, you get the same features, you get the same kind of rich interface when you're doing that from your mobile app as well. Okay. So be productive anywhere. So that is the real goal behind being mobile friendly, right? So maybe it's a Sunday and all of a sudden your manager calls you and says, see, that is an email from a client, I really want you to respond back. And maybe you're somewhere having fun with your family, you're in a theater, it could be anything. It's not possible for you to rush back and come to your home and open your laptop and send an email. That's not the way it works, right? So if it is over your mobile, you're just going to access your device, maybe your iPhone or Android device, and you can send your email. So it really saves a lot of your time, right? So manage and secure mobile productivity, okay? As I keep speaking a lot about mobility, right? So I just kept saying that Office 365 is really mobile friendly, right? At the very same time, we should also be concerned about security, because you're really dealing with your customers, documents, and contents. That could be a large amount of classified information, right? And when you're getting things done in your mobile, right? So that could be concerns that what if you're leaking out the content to a different vendor or to my competitor and all. So even that is something which is taken care using Intune. If you see Intune, right, one coolest thing which I saw recently is you can have certain policies for your documents in Office 365, wherein you open a document in your mobile, you can copy that document, and you cannot paste that document to your Gmail. Even though you copy it completely and paste it in your Gmail, it's not going to work. But at the same time, if you copy that same document, the contents in the document, and attach it to your work email, it works. So that is the kind of security which Office 365 has. We have a lot of policies like your DLP, right? So it is really, really secure. So it is just it's just unimaginable. So there is no way you could break these security policies. And yes, so maybe you're the IT admin of your company, you're a system administrator, or you could be the Office 365 administrator, or SharePoint guy, or an Exchange guy, or whatever role you play, right? So you can have this Office 365 admin app installed in your device, in your mobile device, and you can just get things done on the go. Let's say all of a sudden you get a call and say, I don't know, all of a sudden a user is not able to access his SharePoint online. It says that he doesn't have license given to him. So from your mobile, you can just check for that guy and see whether he has all the enough licenses given to them. So things can be done on the go. You really don't need to go sit in front of your workstation, or you cannot call that guy and say, I'm just coming to office, just give me some time. Everything can be done over the mobile. So that's how cool this service is, okay? So intelligent apps and services. There is a lot of machine learning and AI stuff which is going on within Office 365. I'm not sure how many of you have heard this term called as a Microsoft Graph. If not, to put it in simple words, Microsoft Graph is this artificial intelligence and machine learning stuff within Office 365, and it tends to learn from the way you access Office 365. Let's say me as a guy, I come to my office, I'm opening my Outlook in Office 365, I keep sending emails to a couple of people, then I go to SharePoint, I create a new document, I edit a document, and then I have a Skype meeting with someone, I'm having a broadcast meeting, maybe I'm having a meeting with a couple of people. So what Microsoft Graph does is it tends to learn your work. It tends to learn what are the services you're accessing in Office 365 every day. And it kind of creates an insight so that, the next time you really do not want to, there is a lot of machine learning going on, and it gives you a generic view. So that's how powerful this product is all about. If you even see your Gmail, right? So these days, I'm not sure how many of you have noticed that. By default, you can see certain emails marked as important, right? There will be a small yellow icon there which says as important. It was not you who did that, but Gmail as a service, it starts seeing how you use emails, how you use your Gmails to maybe you're responding to certain emails. Maybe there are certain emails which you just ignore as spam and all. So what are the important emails? So it tends to learn from the way you use that service, and it creates some rich AI stuff. So even Office 365 is capable enough of doing that. And then your Delve. So Delve is a brand new. Maybe it was rolled out at least some 7 to 8 months back, if I'm not wrong. And Delve is something which is replacing your profiles in Office 365, right? So earlier you have a user in Office 365, you click on that user's profile, it's going to take you to his SharePoint My Site, where you can see all his details, his activities, his interest, his hobbies, and what are the projects he is working on. So all those kind of stuff can be seen on a person's SharePoint My Site. But now Delve is replacing that. Okay, so there is so Delve is the place where you go to see all the details about a user. Okay, and yeah, your Power BI, which is indeed great. So folks who are working in Power BI, and I don't even need to explain the power of this product, right? So you can have your contents from a database, and you can create these rich dashboards and reports, which is really live, right? So if you want to do the same thing in real time using Excel or applications like that, that's going to cost you a long amount of time. But Power BI is something which can really simplify those things for you, and you have these great 360-degree view of a dashboard, right? So maybe your leadership asked all of a sudden that I need a dashboard or report like this so that I can showcase this to my customer, like my numbers are really great for this month, right? And they come and ask you, can you just build me a report or dashboard like this, right? So you really don't need to use that old Excel and do a lot of those Power Pivot, all of those graphs and all. With Power BI, things are really simple. Okay. So yes, as I was clearly mentioning, all these cool features really matter only when they can be trusted, right? You really cannot invest your money on something which isn't really trustworthy. And as long as it is on cloud, you really get to doubt at least more than twice, because you do not have, because you're not taking care of your content. It is sitting somewhere on a data center which is not even managed by you. And at times when I'm speaking to my customers and I say that, why don't we migrate to Office 365, or why don't we move our infrastructure to Azure? Most of the time what I tend to hear from them is security. They keep saying that, no, I'm just concerned about the security. Okay. So to be really honest, I think Office 365 is double the time secure than what your on-premises can really do, if you really get to understand the security features in Office 365, right? I'm just going to show you how certain things are set up so that you can go ahead to your business and you can really say that these things are there in Office 365, and why don't we make use of it? So in terms of compliance, as I just said, right? So be it any large enterprise, before they want to make use of a cloud platform, right, they want to make sure that it is really compliant, right? So Office 365 has all these certificates just to make sure that they are compliant. They have the ISO 27018, and they are HIPAA certified, and they have EU FISMA. So all these are compliance certificates which is given in the US for any cloud service, and any cloud service should be certified by all these organizations to make sure that it's only then consumers would start making use of it, and any organization is going to buy it. So Office 365 is certified by all these organizations, right? There is a link down there which I've given to the Trust Center. It's just not these certificates. There are a lot of certificates which Microsoft has got to make sure that Office 365 is really compliant. Okay. And then there is the customer lockbox. I'm not sure how many of you read my article on customer lockbox. So I'll just show you in a demo on what customer lockbox is all about. To put it in simple words, let's say you're a SharePoint guy or an Exchange guy, and all of a sudden you notice that something is broken in your environment, right? And you know that it's in the cloud. You can't do anything to fix it. You can't go behind and pull out the ULS logs and see what is really going on, or you can't log into the server and check the event viewer and understand what really caused this, right? So in that cases, what you can do is you can raise a support ticket with Microsoft, right? And once that ticket reaches Microsoft, they are gonna send you a request saying that, all right, I have this ticket, could you just grant me this access? So you as a customer would be giving access to the Microsoft engineers to access your environment. Let's say the Microsoft engineer says, I need access to your environment from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. today to fix this issue, right? So you can give that access, and once that is done, you can revoke your access. So that is how secure this service is. So privacy, yeah, that's once again a major concern. So as long as Office 365 is concerned, Microsoft is the custodian of your data and you are the owner of your data. So I'm going to repeat that once again. Microsoft is the custodian of your data and you are the owner of your data. So that makes a lot of sense, right? So the job of Microsoft is just to take care of all those things. They are not going to come into picture and fiddle around with your contents. It is you who's going to take care of all your contents, right? So you cannot really delete something and go back to Microsoft after 1 year and say, I deleted this document, can you get it back for me? So that's not the way it works. Their job is just to take care of things. They just really don't take care of handling all your content, or maybe your mailboxes or your SharePoint contents or whatever it is. Okay. So built-in enterprise protection, as I said, all your documents are really encrypted using the Azure information protection. All right, and even when you're trying to access your document from your laptop or from your mobile device, you have this Windows information protection, which is an extra layer of security. Okay, so there are like 2 layers of security. One is your Azure information protection, which is tightly coupled with stuff like your Intune and all, and then you have your DLPs. I'm not sure how many of you know what a DLP is all about, but just to give you an overview of what DLP is, it's called as data loss prevention. And what it really does is, let's say you're uploading a document in your SharePoint site, okay, and maybe that's a personal document, and maybe you're giving a detail like this is my credit card number. So that is something which can be prohibited in Office 365. Okay, so because if you think about Office 365, it's meant for a work purpose. You really cannot go ahead and key in all your personal stuff like your credit card information and things like that. So you can create some policies using DLP saying please prohibit my users from uploading their credit card information, or whatever information it is. The moment they are trying to do it, it will mark that document as it is violating this policy, and then it is going to ask that user to revoke that content, or else you will be getting a notification saying, you know what, this user has violated this policy, so you better give him a buzz and say him that, hey, what's going on. Okay, so things like that are even possible within Office 365. So security challenges, so that is really major. Okay, so I'm just not going to go through all these contents here, but if you see this, which is marked as 87%, I think that is something we all do in our day-to-day work, right? So maybe we are working in a document in our office and it is late for us. We tend to send it to our personal email address so that we can go back home. We can open that in our Gmail in our home, and then we can that. Maybe that is some customer confidential information, right? So that is something which we guys normally do in our day-to-day work. I do it. Okay, so as I said, right, so those kind of security challenges are always there when you're when you're working with a customer or with a client. So Office 365 try to take care of all these challenges. There is no way you can break all these. It's not possible for you to copy a content from your work email and paste it in your Gmail and then send it. That's not going to work. If you all those security things are well settled in your Office 365 tenant, then there is no way you can breach it. So advanced security management, as I said, threat detection. When there is a virus, or which is when a user uploaded something which has some virus on it, you will be getting an alert for it, and enhanced control and discovery and insights. Okay, so Office 365 plays a major role on all these 3 areas. So you don't need to be bothered about your security or privacy, or maybe this thing is sitting on cloud. Can I really go ahead and use it? Are my customers going to be happy when I suggest Office 365 to them, right? So it is really secured in such a manner that you can't even imagine. And I'm telling you this again and again. If you really start to understand all these security features in Office 365, it is a lot better than what you get in your on-premises environment. All right, so that's a lot of talking which I did on Office 365. So let me just show you a small demo on the a new Office 365 Admin Center. Okay, so let me get into the demo here. So this is my tenant. So the moment I log into Office 365, this is how I'm gonna see my tenant as. So I'm not sure if you guys understand all these concepts about Office 365 roles. So Office 365 has these different permission levels. Okay, it has something called as a global administrator, it has something called as Exchange administrator, SharePoint Online administrator, Skype for Business administrator, Servers administrator. So what this means is a global admin is someone like a domain admin in your firm, right? A domain admin is someone who could do anything he want, right? He can go ahead and delete a user, he can go ahead and fiddle around with the domain controllers, he could do whatever he want. So the highest level of privilege you get in Office 365 is from a global admin role. That is a pretty good document in internet. You can just go ahead and Google Office 365 roles. There is a pretty good document there where they have written about all the roles which is available in Office 365 and what are the permissions you get with each and every single role. Okay, and then there comes the SharePoint online role. In that case, you only get to manage all the stuff related to SharePoint, right? You cannot go ahead and delete a user's mailbox in Exchange Online. That's not possible because your role is only limited to manage SharePoint. And then we have Skype for Business Online, you have Exchange Online. So depending upon the services and depending upon the role you play, the roles can be assigned to you so that you don't break something intentionally or unintentionally. Okay. So this is how my tenant looks like the moment I log in. And this is the new admin center, and there is some customization which I did here. Okay, I'm going to click here. That's the app launcher, the place where I clicked, and the icon here which says admin is where it's going to take me to the admin center. Let it load. You can see a notification there which says go to the old admin center. You know, for a couple of months back, even I was not comfortable with this new admin center because it was not really intuitive for me. I just had to go looking around to, let's say if I want to change some setting, I was kind of going around here and there trying to identify where this looks like. But once you get used to this new admin center, I'm telling you guys, it's really powerful. It saves a lot of your time. So whomever is using the old admin center in Office 365, please try to switch to the new admin center and give it some time. You'll get used to it. Okay, so I scroll all the way down, so I see admin centers here. So this is where me as a global admin can see all these services, right? So Exchange Online, Skype for Business. Maybe I'm a guy who has only SharePoint Online access, then under this drop down I'll be only seeing SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. Or maybe if I'm given access to OneDrive for Business also, I'll be seeing that. Okay, so that's how granular it is. Okay, so let it load. So the admin center for Exchange Online has loaded. So this is where an Exchange Online admin guy would log in to manage his users' mailboxes, maybe distribution groups, DLs, DLPs, malware protection, spams. So everything can be taken care from this console. So this is the only console which an Exchange Online admin can log into, and everything can be done from here. And of course there are some settings here. All right. And then this is the Skype for Business Admin Center. So this is where a Skype for Business administrator would log in, and from here he can manage everything. And this is meant for a SharePoint online. Okay, so maybe you want to create any new team site, you want to increase the site quota for any given team site, maybe you want to add a new admin to any new team site. So everything which you can think about SharePoint on an admin level can be done from this console. Okay, and I was talking a lot about security and compliance. All right, so let's I'll just show you a small cool thing here. Okay, so just give me a minute. So here is the security and compliance tab. Okay, I'm just opening that for you. It's loading. All right, it unloaded here. Okay, I'm gonna go here, search and investigation, audit log search. Okay, this is nothing but I can do a lot of auditing about how my users are using Office 365, right? So how they are using Exchange Online, how they are using SharePoint Online, or how they are using OneDrive for Business. I can audit a SharePoint site, I can audit a user's mailbox, or I can audit a user itself. Because let's say you left a company and you just have a notice period of 1 or 2 months to serve, and you know that once you leave the company and walk out of the door, you're not going to have access to any of those confidential information. and what you decide is you want to send some important documents to your personal emails, or you can do whatever you want, right? So, and it could be maybe you're walking, maybe your next firm is your competitor, and you just want to make sure that none of those things happen and your users are not misusing Office 365, right? So you can audit all their activities. So I already turned on auditing in my tenant, so that's the reason it's already set up. If your tenant is brand new, the moment you go here, it'll ask you to turn on auditing. Just turn it on and give it a day's time, okay? And show results for all active. So this is the things which I can audit. Let's say on a SharePoint level, I can audit all these things. I can audit a guy who has checked out a file, who has copied a file, who has deleted a file, renamed a file. I can audit everything. All right. So sharing is really great when it comes to Office 365, right? Maybe you're sharing a content with an external user. So things like that can also be audited. Maybe with whom you are sharing, did that person whom you shared, right? Did he share that content with someone else? All right, so things like that can be audited. And the other thing is, yeah, I'll just be spending few more minutes talking about DLP as well. Okay, and your Exchange online mailboxes, you can be auditing your Exchange online mailbox as well. And SWay, so this has not been really used much in Office 365. This is a great way of presentation, right? You can have some rich slides created using SWays. So everything can be audited using your Office 365. So I'll just show you a small demo. I want to audit myself, right? I've been using, this is me. Let me try to run a search on what I've been doing all these time. Okay. So just give it a moment. It's going to load the results. So there you go. So this is what me as a user has been doing in Office 365 for all these days. So I've been viewing a page, I previewed a file, and let me just go all the way down. So maybe I accessed a file, I accessed a OneNote document, I uploaded something, right? So everything gets audited here. There is no way you could miss information. So whatever I say Office 365 to audit as, everything gets audited, right? So maybe I can just go all the way up. I want to know what did I do during this time, right? So I previewed a file. So this is the file which I previewed, and it was done from this IP address. That's the IP address of the machine which I used to access Office 365, and it was done within this time frame. It is really that granular. You can audit everything. So I saw someone in the chat mentioning about DLPs as well, right? So I'll just show you what DLP can really do. I haven't created any policy here, but as I was saying, right, you can create a large amount of policies within Office 365. Okay, so you can create some custom policies as well, right? Maybe I'm creating your policy here. I can name a new policy, as I said, right? I can create some templates for a policy. Maybe I can create a policy which says I do not want my users to create a document, and that document shouldn't be having their credit card informations or their bank balance or their social security numbers or maybe their bank account numbers. I can create policies for that as well. I cannot keep spending more amount of time creating a DLP as well because of the time constraint, but there is a lot of things here. You can just go ahead and create a new template for yourself, and you can start exploring a lot. Okay. All right. So yeah, I see someone saying that they are using DLCs, DLP policies. So yeah. And the other demo which I want to show you is the settings panel here. All right. So maybe I want to turn on some new service, right? So this is where I do. When I go to settings, I click services and add-ins, and this is where I turn on something, right? So if I go all the way down, I can turn on some new service which my tenant was not using. Okay. So SWay, let me check. This is where I manage all these services. Maybe if I want to turn on external sharing for SWay, everything can be done here. Okay. And see, the to-do is new. I'm not sure how many of you guys noticed this, but Microsoft released this new feature called as Microsoft To Do couple of weeks back. It was not even couple of weeks, just a week back. Okay, so if I want to turn that on in my tenant, I can just go here and click save. Right now it's in preview mode. It's not rolled out for all the tenants, but maybe eventually Microsoft will roll it out, and you can just go here and turn that on for your users. So then I go to the organization profile. So this is going to give the details about your tenant. What is the name of your tenant? Who's the technical contact? Okay, the custom themes, right? So I can change this theme. So this rainbow kind of theme which you changed here, which you see there, is something which I changed. You can add custom tiles as well. Give me a minute. Right, so you can add custom tiles. Let's say when people are clicking on the app launcher, you want to add some customization. Let's see here. See, this is something. This is my blog site. I added this custom tile there. So maybe you can add your help desk information, or maybe your company's intranet portal link. So everything can be just added here, and your users can just access it from there. Okay. So things like that can be done, and the data location details is also given here. This is where your when I was creating my tenant, I chose North America, so that's the reason my exchange, my mailboxes are stored in North America region. My SharePoint sites are sitting there, and my Skype for Business is also hosted there. So that's how transparent Microsoft is with its customers, because you're using a cloud service and they really want to be as transparent as possible with their consumers. Okay, and usage reports. Okay, let me try to pull the usage reports. Okay, so all of a sudden maybe the CEO of your company, he wants to understand how users are using Office 365, right? So you can get some pretty rich dashboards here. So you can just pull him, give these details, right? So maybe so much of email activity is going on, so this is how OneDrive is being used, right? So this is how SharePoint is being used. This is how Skype for Business is being used. So everything, all this information can be pulled from here, and you can also export this to a CSV file, right? So maybe you rolled out Office 365, you want to know how users are using it, right? So you can just go here and you can pull out these reports. And the health, I'm not sure. So what I do normally for one of my customers is, so every day I go to work, the moment I'm starting my day, I just go to the Office 365 tenant of that customer, and I keep checking this service health. This is nothing but it is the console which gives you the health status of all the services in your Office 365 admin center. You know, maybe you can also follow this practice of seeing the health page, right? So when I see this green icon, which means that all these services are perfectly fine, which means SharePoint is fine, Microsoft Teams is fine, Yammer is fine, Planner is fine, but I see some problem with Exchange Online. Okay, so please pay attention to this icon. When I see this round symbol with an exclamation sign inside it, it means it's just an advisory, which means Microsoft, there is something going on with that service, and Microsoft is working on it, but it's not really creating a big business impact. Okay, maybe they'll fix it in maybe in an hour or two, or maybe within 4 to 5 hours max. But when you see something called as incident, which means, so when I just clicked on it, it is giving me is a critical service issue, which means there is going to be some user impact. Maybe your users, maybe there is going to be some downtime for that service. So this is something which I do every day when I go to work. I just keep checking whether all the services are fine. Let me load the message center as well. Is there any API to get a usage report? I don't think that is possible using API, but I think there are PowerShell scripts and commands wherein you can just export that information and get it. That's possible using PowerShell. Okay. And one moment. So this is the message center in Office 365. So this is the place where Microsoft keeps informing about all the new rollouts or any push which they are doing to the tenant, right? So even this is customizable. You can click here and you can keep only unread messages, or maybe you're just interested in seeing the change plans. You can see that stay informed is about the new rollouts which Microsoft is planning to do for Office 365. prevent or fix issues is maybe there was some issue which was reported in the tenant and later Microsoft fixed that, so those kind of details will come here. So you can just go to this and you can just click and it's going to give you all the information here. Okay. And then I think I spoke about the admin role, so that's much which I wanted to tell you. And maybe you're a new person who started using Office 365, right? And you're sort of, maybe you didn't understand, or maybe you're not sure about how to use a certain feature. Then you can use your Office 365 tell me. Let me show you that feature. So this was something which was recently rolled out. I'll just show you what tell me is. You see this question mark symbol here? One moment. So that is called as tell me. You just click there, right? And it's going to ask you, it's going to tell you what do you want. I'm saying like how to, how to create a SharePoint, or maybe how to create a site, right? I don't know how to create a site, so it's going to take me all the way here. Maybe it's going to give me how to, I can just click on these links and understand how to create a SharePoint site, right? Even if I say how to compose an email, it's going to give me these details. So this is a new feature which Microsoft has rolled out called as tell me. Maybe you can advertise this to your end users so that they don't keep raising a support ticket every now and then saying I want to do this, how do I do that, right? So everything is already inbuilt within Office 365. You just need to know how to use it. Okay, so that's a small demo on on the new Office 365 Admin Center. I wish I could show more, but guys, due to time constraint, it's not possible for me to show everything, but maybe in my next upcoming sessions I'll talk more about the other features. So let's go ahead with the session. Okay, and the next would be what's new in Office 365. All right, so that is because if you think about Office 365 as a service, right, I hope everyone would agree with me when I say Microsoft keeps releasing new features at least once in every month, right? So a major feature, right? So every day they keep releasing so many things, and a major rollout is coming out from coming out in Office 365 every month. In that space, I've identified certain important new features which can be useful for any average user, right? It could be useful for a technical guy, it could be used for a business user, or it could be maybe you're a business analyst, or maybe you're a project manager, or maybe you're playing the role of a CEO for your company, right? So there are certain new features which came up which can be used for everyone, and I'm going to show you certain things here. So this is how Office 365 was a couple of years back. All right, so you just used to have SharePoint Online, Exchange Online, Skype for Business Online, and Project Pro, Visio, all these things, right? So a couple of years back, this was the only service which you used to get when you purchased Office 365. But the current reality is this. Okay, so you get to see a large amount of things which is happening, right? So as I said, every month there is a major rollout which is coming out from Microsoft, and there are many new features, many new enhancements which is coming out. Okay, so these are some latest cool apps which you see in Office 365. You have your Teams, SVA, Delve. Office 365 videos is really huge. You have your cloud PBX, right? And your Microsoft To Do. That was something which was released 2 weeks back. Then you have your Office 365 groups, then Power BI, your project planner, right, your Microsoft Planner. Then you have your Yammer, your My Analytics, Power Apps, and then you have a Microsoft, I think Dynamics was there for quite some time, right? So it is there right from the, if I'm not wrong, right from the beginning it was there. Okay. So this is just a small pictorial representation of all the services which you get in Office 365. The outermost layer which you see is all the infrastructures related services like SharePoint, Skype for Business, Exchange, and then you have these applications which sort of work closely with these infrastructure services. And then you have the Office applications which work closely with the infra services as well as the application services. Okay. Alright, so Office 365 video. I'm not sure whether your users or your business is making use of this, right? So maybe if you think about it, right, there are some bunch of people who are newly joining the company and you want to call them and talk about the new HR policies about your organization or the finance policies or things like that, right? So it's not necessary for you to keep calling them every now and then and arrange a meeting room and host those kind of sessions, right? So maybe you could record a video, maybe the HR or the senior HR could be talking in that video. You could record that video and you can just upload that to Office 365, right? When you're uploading it to Office 365, the entire content is stored in the cloud, so you don't need to be bothered about the space it would be consuming on the server. So that is what Office 365 video is all about, wherein you can upload videos so that your users can use it. And Office 365 groups, so this is really huge. And the other side of it is, this is quite confusing, right? So when Office 365 groups came up, there were a lot of advertisements, and I've personally read a lot of articles and attended many sessions to understand what this Office 365 group is all about. And officially it's called as Outlook group. To put it really in simple words, right? Just think Office 365 is a glue which connects all your other Office 365 services, right? So when I say it's a glue, it can connect your Exchange Online, your SharePoint Online, your OneNote, your OneDrive for Business, and it gives you as a single application called as Office 365 Groups. And you can use that for your team, right? So what happens is, let's say you're the project manager for a specific team, okay, and you want to have a specific group only limited to the team members who are working on your project. Maybe you want to have email communications, or you want to store contents related to that project, or there could be so many reasons, right? So while you're working on a project, so you could have Office 365 groups for that, which sort of serves the purpose. I'll be showing you a demo so that you get to understand how you can really leverage that for your business. So Yammer in Office 365, as I already said, that's the enterprise, which gives the enterprise social experience to your organization, right? So earlier Yammer used to be a standalone product, so it was like a couple of years back, if I remember, right? Then it was purchased by Microsoft, and then later they added Yammer to the Office 365 suite. All right, so Yammer is really huge in Office 365, so you can even have the Yammer set up for your users, right? And you can also create a group in Yammer. The moment you're creating a group in Yammer, you get a SharePoint document library, a OneNote, a SharePoint team site, and Planner. I'll just be showing you a demo on how that looks like in real time. Yeah. Microsoft Planner, I believe this is a new role by MS, which came roughly a couple of months back, if I'm not wrong. All right. Just to make you understand what this Microsoft Planner is all about, there is this small diagram which I've put there from Microsoft Mechanics video. So what happens is, let's see, I'm a technical guy. The kind of work which I do for my business is I take care of building the SharePoint infrastructure for my customers. In addition to that, I also plan migrations. I work on some new RFPs for my company, and as a part of that RFPs, I have to work on some meetings, talking to the customers, some KTs and all. So I'll be mainly involved much on the task management part of any project work. So what happens is, my normal work is to support the SharePoint infrastructure as well as the Office 365 and Azure environment for my customers. In addition to that, I also get tagged to different projects wherein I have to get released from my project for a specific time frame, go to that project and work on different RFPs or KTs and all. Okay. So let's say when I'm going and working on a new project, I would be getting assigned to a different project manager, and that guy would be giving me a different project ID, and he'll be assigning me some tasks and all those things. So what happens most of the time is there should be a medium which connects your task management as well as your project portfolio management, right? Like your time sheets, the amount which you're spending in working with the customer. Maybe every day there is a status meeting with your customer wherein you have to spend half an hour to 1 hour talking to the customer, and there are some deadlines which you're working on, right? So maybe the project manager will be working on the project portfolio management part, and me as a technical resource, I'll be working in the task management part. So this Microsoft Planner is something which connects both these things together, and it gives me as a work management. That's how simple I can say Planner is all about. So it is something which connects your task management as well as your project portfolio management, so that you can enhance the way you do business, and you can really be more productive for your customers. There is a small demo on this as well. I'll be showing you how you can leverage Microsoft Planner for your business. So Microsoft Teams, this is really huge and phenomenal, right? So I think this was rolled out roughly some 3 months back. Okay, this is the new chat-based workspace for your organization, right? So it is almost similar to Office 365, wherein there you get to send, wherein the interaction happens over emails and other form, wherein here the interaction happens within chat. There is a small demo on this as well. I'll be explaining you how it works. And there is a link below to an article which I wrote on Microsoft Teams. So I urge you all to go ahead and read it after this session, so that you get to understand in detail about Microsoft Teams. So my analytics, this is truly great. I'm not sure if you guys have really started rolling out this for your users. If not, please talk to your business and make sure that your users are aware of this feature called as My Analytics, right? So earlier it was called as Delve Analytics, and now it is called as My Analytics, right? Let me just go to this slide. For some reason I couldn't get a demo on this because my tenant is really brand new. I built it just a week back, and for my analytics to start showing up, I at least need 1 week of time. So this is the machine intelligence, the artificial intelligence stuff which I was speaking. So what this my analytics does is, as I said, it is built on top of your Microsoft Graph. Okay, as I was talking initially, the Microsoft Graph is the artificial intelligence component, the machine learning component in Office 365. It sees what you as a user and what are the services you use within Office 365, right? It sees whom are the person whom you talk, whom are the persons whom you write emails to, how often you write emails to them, right? So how often you receive emails from a specific group, and maybe when an email is sent to you, are you marked in CC, or maybe are you a part of any DL? So how the emails comes to you, and how much time you're spending in attending a Skype meeting, right? And what is the time which you spent on extra hours and all, right? So the moment you go to your Delve profile, there will be something called as My Analytics. The moment you click there, it is going to show you all these things, right? The meeting hours which you spend for a week, right? And your email hours, how much time you are spending on attending meetings. It could be Skype meetings, right? So maybe you're working on a project and every day you spend 2 hours or 1 hour talking to the client. So it just tends to learn from that, and it's going to give you the focus hours, and then how much time you spend on writing emails. Focus hours is nothing but it tends to learn all these things, and it is going to show you your focus hours, how much you're really focusing on the work which is given to you. When I say after hours, how much time you're working after your business hours, maybe after your office timings, right? And so when this product initially came out, it was kind of misinterpreted that everyone can see your My Analytics dashboard. So that's not the way it works, okay? So your My Analytics is only meant for you. When you log into your Dell profile, it is only you who can see your My Analytics dashboard, right? So don't get to think that maybe my supervisor can log in and he can see what are the stuffs which I'm doing, whether this guy is really working or maybe he's chilling out in office. So you don't need to be bothered about those kind of things, right? So it is just for you to increase your productivity. Okay, so maybe you're going on a vacation and all of a sudden you're not responding to certain person's emails, or maybe you're traveling. So your My Analytics is gonna adjust accordingly, and it is going to say that you're missing up on your emails, or the amount of time which you spend on meeting is really less. So what you can do is you can just gain this insight for yourself, and you can sort of improve your productivity. Okay. So Microsoft To Do, that is something which is recently released. It's nothing but it is your, if you guys are aware, there was this application called as Asana, I think, which is still there. Okay. So a couple of years back when I was working on a different project, right, so the client used to assign tasks using Asana, right? So tasks get assigned to us with some deadlines, and also that is the similar thing which you get to do with this. So it is just not your personal to-dos, your office to-dos. Maybe you have to go to a gym today, or maybe you have to go buy groceries. It's just a small to-do app. And even the Microsoft is also working on the I think the mobile application for this, mobile app for this is also out. So this is how it looks like. So it's still in preview, so maybe you won't be seeing this in your tenant. The moment you start seeing it, just start to explore it. I believe even this can increase your productivity. So enough of talking on the new features. So just let me just walk you on a demo on all these things. Okay. So back to my tenant once again. So I see a lot of questions. I'm gonna just show you what Microsoft Teams is all about. And it is not available in E3. It's a part of your E5 plan. Okay, so it's not available in E3 plan. And let me just go here. So let me first talk about what is new in Outlook. Okay, just give it a minute so that it loads. Alright, so that's my Microsoft Outlook. It's done loading. So let me just show you what is new in terms of emailing, which recently came out. Alright, so I just spoke about @mentions as well as clutter, right? So let's say I want to drop an email to someone in my tenant, and his name is okay, this guy, and I want to send him an email. Hey, how about coffee? Okay, and I just do not want to invite him alone for a coffee. I just want to check if someone else is also available. So there is no need for me when I'm saying that shall we, shall we meet for coffee, right? And I'm gonna say this is called as @mention, right? The moment I'm gonna click, it's gonna go to the to address field. So that is something which recently Microsoft rolled out, right? So which means when I'm @mentioning someone, it means that even that guy has to get his attention, right? I'm gonna send this, and maybe I want to invite someone else as well, maybe yeah, right? So this email even goes to that person. So when I say send, all right, so this email gets to, I send this email to all these persons, and then we all can go for a coffee. Okay, so that is something called as @mentions, which is really cool, and many large organizations are using this cool feature. So try to use this even in your organization, in your day-to-day work. It's really a cool functionality. The next thing is clutter, which is nothing but it is the way this is also a kind of machine learning stuff. Let's say in a day there is a lot of emails which you get, and I'm 100% sure that you're not going to respond to all the emails which you get. There are some emails which is just junk, or that you don't need to pay attention to that, and you're just going to ignore it. And maybe you do not want them coming to your mailbox often. So normally we create these Outlook rules, right? But there is some intelligence in that part as well. This clutter is nothing but all the emails which you don't really pay much attention to. Okay, the moment you turn on clutter, it's gonna send you, you're just gonna see all the important emails to you, and all the other unwanted mails. I can just click here and I can say move to clutter. It'll go to my clutter. The moment I move this email to clutter, right, it's just gonna do some learning. Maybe it'll scan for another 1 or 2 days, and every time an email comes from that address, it'll automatically move it to clutter. Okay, so that could be some chances wherein you would be also missing some important emails, but It's a machine learning. It tends to learn from what are the emails you respond to, what are the emails you really read, what are the emails which you're really focusing on, and all the unwanted stuff is just moved to clutter. Maybe in a day, by the end of your day, you can just go to clutter and you can see all the emails which is there, and if at all something is important, you can respond to that. Okay. And let's talk about Yammer. So here is Yammer. As I said, this is your enterprise social collaboration platform. It's something similar to your Facebook. It's just that it is within your organization where you can collaborate within your folks. Okay. So yes, I believe a lot of you guys are already using Yammer in your organization, right? So this is where I can just go and get started. Maybe I want to ask some question. I can join a Yammer group. Maybe I'm from the SharePoint team. Someone else could be from a SharePoint development team. Someone else could be from a .NET team. There will be so many technologies, or maybe you're from the HR, you're from the HR team. You can just join the appropriate Yammer groups so that any conversation which is happening within that group, you can be a part of it. So this is where I go to create a new group. The moment I'm going to create a new group, it's going to ask me whether this group has to be internal or external. I can just give the group name. I can specify whether it has to be internal. I can add my group members, and I can say whether it has to have public or private access, right? I just created a group called as Azure team. So I can just collaborate. I can just add a few members to this group and I can start collaborating within them. And there is always this thing called as all company, which means this is a generic. This is for everyone in my organization. Maybe your CEO wants to make a new post about some new policy, or maybe any generic post can be made on this group actually. Then let me show you Office 365 groups. I think when I was talking about Outlook, I didn't show you guys that. So Office 365 groups is officially now called as your Outlook group. Okay. So these are my Office 365 groups. Under groups, you're going to see all the Office 365 groups that I've created. So I go here, I click on create. It's going to ask me to create a group. I have to give the name for a group, the description about that group, whether it has to be public, right? When it's going to be public, everybody can see what is happening within that group, or it can be private, which is just meant for your project. I just created a couple of groups called as SharePoint Engineering, or maybe SharePoint 2016. The moment when I create an Office 365 group, I get some mails which these conversations which will be happening only within the folks who are a part of this group. I also get an Outlook calendar, right? So maybe you're working on a project and you have an Office 365 group which is meant for that project alone, right? And so you can set up some meetings for that within the customer or within the team, and that meetings will be showing up here. Or maybe someone is going on leave, you can update those details so that you're aware that this person is on leave in this time frame. Then you have files wherein you can upload your it's like a SharePoint storage, right? You can upload all your contents. Then you have your OneNote, right? And then you have connectors. So connectors is nothing but you can add something which is not already present in Office 365. Let's say you want to add your Twitter account, your Twitter handle. You can also do that. Your Wunderlist app. Your Wunderlist app is nothing but it is something to track your to-do tasks, right? So you can even add that to your Office 365 group. So it's just a lot of collaboration which is going on with Office 365. As I initially said, it's the glue which connects all your SharePoint, your Exchange, your OneNote, everything together, and you get this as a single application, so that you can use that to collaborate, within yourselves and try to be more productive. Okay. So my next thing would be on, let's talk on Project Planner. Okay, let me just load it. So as I said, this is something which is meant to bridge the gap between task management and project portfolio management, right? So me as a technical guy would be working on technical tasks, and the project guy would be working, the project manager, he would be working on his deliverables, and we sort of need a medium to stay connected, to make sure that we both together are productive enough, and the client and we are meeting our targets and things are getting done within the SLAs, right? So I can create a new plan for myself. Okay, so I can name it whatever I want, and you can give it an email address. Even here you can make a group as a plan as public or private, and you can give a description. I've created couple of plans here. Okay, let me just show you. I'm going to this called as SharePoint engineering. So this is a plan which I created, right? So the moment I'm creating a plan in Microsoft Planner, I'm going to get a view like this, right? So all these things which you see here called as gathering data, initial planning, capacity planning, and implementation, right? So I named my plan as SharePoint engineering, which sort of means that maybe we are working on a plan to build the SharePoint infrastructure for a customer, right? So whatever you see here, these categories are called as buckets. Okay, so I can add a new bucket, implementation. Maybe I can call this as final rollout. Okay, so these are called as categories, right? So we call them as buckets here in Microsoft Planner. The moment maybe the initial phase of this project is to gather the data from the customer, I can go here and I can create a new task, right? So maybe I can call this as gather the required info, right? So this is called as the task. Maybe I'm assigning this task to myself, or maybe someone can assign this task for me. Maybe I'm the supervisor for a team. I can assign this task, and I can say add task. The task shows up here. I can go in here. The moment I create, this is how it looks like. It gives me this view. I can add an assignment. Maybe I can add it for myself, or I can assign this task to someone else in my team. Let me assign this to him. So he gets assigned to this task. So it's under the bucket of gathering data. Progress is it's not yet started. The start time could be, you could mention as today he has to start it, and the due date is maybe within 1 week he has to finish all these things. And the checklist, maybe as a part of this task there is some checklist which he has to be working on. Yeah, he can create a checklist, or maybe I can create a checklist and put it there. And a small description about this task, like maybe when I'm saying gather the required info, I can tell just talk to the customer about why does he want SharePoint. What would be the business use of having a SharePoint infrastructure? Why do they need SharePoint, right? And then I can add some attachments related to this task, and finally some comments, and I can just assign this task to him, right? So similar way, once I'm done with this bucket, the initial phase, I can go here and then I can say initial planning. Maybe we are working on collecting the server requirements or all those things. So once I'm done with this, I can go to capacity planning. So this is how you would collaborate in a project, right? Just think, if you use stuff like this for working on a project, right, there are possibilities that you would never get lost. All your tasks are intact. There is no way you would be going out of your deadlines, because this thing is always going to keep giving you an alert saying, see, you haven't completed this, right? So that is the board view. Let me go to the chart view here. So this is how it shows up. Just give it a minute. So this is how you can see the list of tasks and its status. So yellow stands for not started, 0 is late, in progress, and completed. So you can just see this and see that okay, so maybe one task is still in progress and one is completed, and I've completed all my tasks, so I'm not late in anything. Okay, maybe I go here. This is the second plan. Alright, so if I go to the chart view here, so this is how it looks like among the 3 tasks, which is, so one is unassigned, then give it, and then I'm sort of red, which means I'm late to complete that task. There is nothing in progress and I didn't complete anything. Okay, even here I should have some, I can add something, like maybe I can add some calendar here so that I can set up some meetings and it would show up here. I can add some files. I can have a OneNote so that maybe we are on a meeting with the client on something about this project. So whatever meeting notes we captured, we can come and keep it here. So it's a lot of collaboration here. If you see in Office 365, that's a different set of collaboration where you can have conversations going on within a team, right? So here it is about when you're working on a project, how you would plan it, right? So how you would be managing the tasks, as well as you work with the project manager and how you get things done. Okay. And then my next demo should be on Microsoft Teams. I believe someone asked a question on what is the plan. So I think most of these features are on the E5 plan. I'm sorry, I don't really remember the plan details off top of my head. You can just go to Microsoft website and read it for yourself. But as long as I know, it is on the E5 plan. And whatever services I showed you, like the Office 365 groups or maybe your Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Planner, you even have a mobile app for this. Okay, so it's just not from your PC, you can even access this from your mobile device. Okay. So the way it works in Microsoft Teams is, this is a chat-based workspace. So even here, once again, it's meant for collaboration, right? So groups is for conversations and other stuff. Maybe your project planner is for planning projects and getting tasks done. So it is a chat-based workspace wherein you can create a team for yourself, right? I just created a team here called as Vignesh's team. I've added couple of members. Maybe we guys are working on a project and we want to discuss about the stuff related to that project, right? So what you're seeing, this view which I'm showing you is the web client view. I also have a desktop client for this, which is this. So let me show you how this works. On the web client, I logged in as Vignesh. On this, I logged in as a different user. Maybe I want to start a new conversation and say, hi, Kamlesh, right? Did you attend today's meeting, right? So I'm just gonna give this to him because I want to know whether he attended today's meeting. All right, so you can see a conversation which came up here, it showed up here, right? So there is an activity for this guy because I logged in as Kamalesh in this, so it could say is mentioned you. So it is similar to your Skype for Business, wherein that you get, on the moment you get a chat or ping for you, you would start seeing all these conversations. So similar way it works on Microsoft Teams as well. All right, and yes, this can also be integrated with your Skype for Business so that you get the chats coming up there. And it's just not this. Maybe I can have some, I can sort of write a big conversation here or something. I can add some attachments to a conversation. I have some cool smileys. Maybe if I want to sound funny, I can add some smileys, right? And there are some GIFs. Maybe I want to maybe you're just having fun in a conversation, right? It's quite possible that we are having some fun in a conversation, our day-to-day work, right? So I can even send this, right? So and maybe we both are having a conversation and all of a sudden we prefer to have a meeting within ourselves. So even that is possible here. Okay. And so it's a lot of collaboration which is going on here. And let me also introduce you to the Microsoft Teams bot. So I hope you guys are all aware of what a bot means, right? So it is it's a technology, once again, wherein there is no need for you to sit and respond. A lot of these websites have these. Maybe if you're visiting any training center website and all of a sudden something will pop up saying, how can I help you, right? And there will be some predefined questions with some predefined answers. So I'm just going to show you. Let's say I want to ask bot as how to create a team, right? I'm just going to ask how to create a team, so that it gives me an answer saying how do I create a team. So this is how I create a team, right? So this is the technology called as bot, and you can also have your own bot systems integrated. Maybe developers can work on that, and some third-party bots can also be integrated with Microsoft Teams. Okay, and let me just go back to my Teams console here. So similar to this, similar to other things, you can also add files here. You can also add wikis. Maybe you can also add few more tabs here, right? So maybe the things which are showing up, you can add a project planner. You can add a Microsoft Word tab. Maybe you want a Microsoft Word document sitting there to capture all the keynotes. Maybe you can add a OneNote. You can add a SharePoint site in this team. So all these things are possible. So you have everything handy which can help you to collaborate really more effective. Okay, and I think that's I'm just done with the new features demo. So indeed there is a lot, but as I already said, right, due to time constraint, I just can't go ahead and keep talking about everything. The next thing is on release options. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware of first release. If not, So first release is nothing but Microsoft keeps pushing a lot of new features, rollouts, a lot of things to your tenant every day, right? And possibilities are that could even break something. So maybe you from your, maybe you're the Office 365 administrator for your company, right? You can make sure that those new rollouts and features which Microsoft is pushing is, maybe you're the first person to get it, right? And you do a lot of testing on it. You do a lot of testing. You want to make sure that that is not breaking anything, because in SharePoint you have a lot of customizations, right? Maybe some feature which they pushed could break something, and you want to make sure that it's totally intact, it didn't fiddle around with something, right? So you can be as a part of the first release program, and your normal users could be on the standard release, which means there is always going to be a 15 to 30 days gap. Maybe you're getting those features today, your other users in Office 365 will be getting it after 15 days or 30 days, so that you always have that time frame to test it. Okay. And then your Office 365 secure score. Let me just show you a small demo on this as well, right? Since we just spoke about this, these things are really great. Maybe you can just go back to your firm and start working on this. You can moment. So let me just show you how to turn on the first release program for your tenant. Okay. I'm going here to settings. I believe it's in let me just see here. Nope. Let me also talk about customer logbox. So this is something which I was showing before. So this is where you go ahead and set that customer logbox thing, right? So if at all Microsoft, the engineers want to have access to your tenant, and you want them to raise a request, so you just go here and turn on the customer logbox request in your tenant, right? So the moment this is done, so you'll be getting a mail alert, and you'll also be seeing a notification in your tenant saying that your there is a request there. Okay. So this is where you set your release preferences, so which I was talking about now. So I'm just going to go edit. So it's, as of now, my tenant is on the standard release track, which means even if I'm part of the IT team, so I would be getting the updates as every other user in my company. And maybe for some other purposes, I do not want that. Maybe I want to get the updates first, and maybe my users can get it 15 or 30 days after I get it, so that I can get to test it. This is where you can turn it. There are three options, which means standard releases, it's as it is. First release for everyone, which means so everyone in your tenant would be getting the first release features coming up. And first release for selected users, maybe you from your IT team alone can get those features. I'm just going to say first release for selected users, right? So yes, so it's updating. It's going to ask me who are the people whom you want to subscribe for. Maybe I can say, so these are, maybe I can say it's only me who want it for now, right? I do not want, maybe I'm the global admin. So whatever future comes, I just want to test it first, make sure that it is really intact, it doesn't break up anything, and then I can close it. So I'll be getting those new features first, and maybe 30 to maybe after 15-30 days later, other users in my tenant would be getting that. Okay. Licensing part, yes, I'll try to cover that as well. And the other thing which I wanted to show you folks is the secure score. This is once again a great thing. I'm not sure if at all we are using this, so this was something very new to me. Okay, so this is the secure score. Okay, so as of now you don't need to set up anything to access the secure score site. Okay, so you as a global admin would be able to access this. For now it is just the global admin, so Microsoft is slowly working on giving this access to Exchange administrators, SharePoint administrators, and Skype for Business administrators. So what the secure score is all about is, while you're setting up your tenant, right? So Microsoft is just gonna study the way you do all the, how things are set up here. It's just gonna ensure whether your everything is secured, if at all something is breaching, right? So your score is gonna go down. So the total score is up to 344. So whatever you see in the denominator field is the maximum score which I can get, and I'm just having a score of 44, right? So I can just keep, if at all I want to increase my score, I'm going to say this, and it's going to say you have so much action items. So this is the action items which I want to do or take care of, right? So I'm going all the way. Now let me just show you this. Designate less than 5 global admins, right? So this is sort of trying to tell me that any tenant should be having only 5 administrators, global administrators, and in my case I'm having 6 administrators, which is mean that I breached that there. So it's just trying to tell me that I'll try to make it as 5 and I'll be getting one more score there, right? So these are all the action items. Maybe these are some things which I've been breaching and my tenant is not really secure. So Microsoft is trying to tell me that you better make sure that these things are taken care in your tenant, and my score will improve accordingly. Okay, and this view is nothing but this is me, and I've been compared with the other consumers who are using Office 365, right? The reason why you're seeing me as 44 and them as 29 is possibilities are that they are not using all the features in Office 365, right? I am running the E5 plan, which is the highest, and I'm using all the features. That could be other customers who are not making use of all these features, and that's the reason. So this is just a normal comparison graph between yes, of course this is a free service, and I already said this is just meant for global administrators for now, right? So maybe later it will be rolled out for other roles as well, maybe for Exchange admin, SharePoint admin, admins and all. This is a great way to make sure that your tenant is really secure. Okay. All right, so back to my slide. So I just showed you what secure score is all about, and let me just talk a little bit about identity management, right? So be it any service, identity management is really the key. So that is sort of a small generic definition which I have given on what identity management is all about, right? So giving the right access to the right individuals at the right time. So whenever I think about identity management, there are these two things which come in my mind, which is authentication and authorization, right? So authentication is nothing but trying to prove who you are. Maybe you're going to your company, you're accessing you're logging into your desktop, you're giving in your AD username and password, which means you're trying to authenticate yourself. Just because you authenticated into your into that PC, it doesn't mean that you can go ahead and access someone else's payslip. You're not authorized to do that, right? So it is really key that we understand what are the things that what is authentication and authorization in the identity management world. Okay. So what is identity? As I said, in the Office 365 world, so what are the files, what are the conversations, so whom are the people you have, you can collaborate with, and what are the events. So identity is big for everything. At least in today's world, you need an identity, right? So you have, at least if you think about our normal life, there has been a lot of identification given to us, right? Like your PAN card or like your Aadhaar card or whatever it is. So in the Office 365 world, it's your credentials, your username and password, which is your identity, using which you can access your files, you can attend meetings, or you can attend all those events, you can collaborate with your colleagues. Okay. And if you think about all these features which I've been talking about, right, maybe whatever, Office 365 groups, teams, or whatever, right, possibilities are such that you're accessing them from your laptop, your workstation, and at the same time you're also signed into that using your mobile device or tab or whatever, right? So there is a lot of authentication which is going on to access all these apps from different devices, right? So that's just a small of a generic overview about how we access the on-premises applications and the cloud. There is a lot of things, and it is the Azure AD which takes care of all these things in Office 365. Okay. So Azure AD, as you guys all know, so that is uh, the place where you can set up all your users, right? So in your on-premises world, it is your Active Directory, your on-premises stuff. When it comes to Office 365, the cloud, it is called as Azure AD. You could either create your users there, or you could sync your users from on-premises to the cloud. And of course, there is a lot of data which is going on within Azure AD. So a lot of Fortune 500 companies use, more than 85% of Fortune 500 companies use Azure AD. Right, more than 10 million of contents and identities or data which is stored on Azure AD. So user accounts, these are really huge numbers, right? So a lot of things is dependent on Azure AD now. So the third-party applications used with Azure AD is like 110,000, right? So you could also have third-party integration to Azure AD. So you could say that I have a SAP application, or I have a third-party, I have some CRM application, and I want my use, and that can be tied to your Azure AD, so that users should given those credentials to access that application. So even that is possible. Okay. So identity for Microsoft Cloud Services. So this is how it works. So you could either have your AD account to access the cloud service, or maybe for your vendors, or for your some external users, it is their live account, right? So that is how they access the content which you have shared with them, maybe from SharePoint Online or any other service. So these are the different identity models in Office 365. You have the cloud identity model, you have the federated identity model, and you have the synchronized model. Okay, let me just talk in detail about what all these models means, because as I initially said, right, so identity is really the key. Right, if at all you're planning to roll out Office 365 for your business, you need to make sure that how you are planning the identity management. Okay, so how to choose an identity model? Well, the answer for this is it depends upon what your business is and how big you are. Okay, so cloud identity, which means I would be creating all my users in the, let me show you from accessing here, right? So I'll just go here, I go to users, I directly go to active users, and I create a user from here, which means this guy will be just available here in Office 365. Okay, his identity is present only on the cloud. He can't go ahead and log in with this account into my on-premises AD. He cannot use any on-premises application using this, just because this guy is just present on the cloud. Okay, so that is called as on-premises AD. I'm sorry, cloud identity model. So when you would use this is maybe your IT department, you're a small company, right? Maybe you only have some 50 to 100 members, and you really do not want to invest money on building a domain controller, then setting up AD, right? So you purchased Office 365 for your business, so you can just create your users online, and they can start using that to access the Office 365 services. Okay. So synchronized identity, which is nothing but, let's say for years you've been living with the on-premises model, right? You have your SharePoint on-premises, Exchange on-premises, Skype for Business on-premises, and you know all these enterprise services, right? They authenticate, they check with your on-premises AD, right? So that's where your users are stored. And maybe in the near future you decided to move to the cloud, right? And you want to make sure that your users can access the on-premises application, at the same point of time they can access the online application as well, right? It's not possible for you to tell them that, you know what, I'll create a new account in cloud so that you can use that account to access Office 365, and for you to access on-premises application you can use your on-premises AD account. So that's sort of like you're giving them two accounts, and at least a normal average user is not going to be happy with that. So in that case, you can synchronize their on-premises identity with the cloud identity. This is where the password hashes is synced, right? And the moment you're logging into your PC with an account, let's say your domain is XYZ, you're logging it as vignesh@xyz.com, you're giving in your password. That's how you log into your PC. You can use then you access your Office 365 services. I can just give the same account and I can access it. I don't need to give a different credentials once again to access that. Okay. So when to use this, as I said, you already been using on-premises, right? And you know your AD health is really good. This is really key, right? So because this is from where your accounts are getting synchronized. Okay. So federated identity is almost sort of simple to synchronized identity.
The only way it differs from here is, let's say I'm trying to access SharePoint online. My identities are already synchronized, right? When I'm giving in my credentials to access a SharePoint online site, what happens is my credentials would be getting validated against the on-premises AD as well. Okay, it's just not going to check my identity in the Azure AD and tell, all right, you have access. No, it's also going to check, it's also going to validate against the on-premises Active Directory, because it's federated, and only then it is going to allow me inside. So this is most of the time what happens is, even everything is fine with Office 365, right? But for some reason your domain controller is down. You still cannot access Office 365 because you're living with a federated identity model where your access has to be validated against the on-premises AD. So this is the Office 365 logical architecture. And I'm almost on the end of my session, so this is the useful resources for Office 365, right? So most of the folks and friends whom I know, they always keep asking me like, where do I learn Office 365 from, right? So this link, it's a hyperlink to all these services. So your Microsoft Tech community is something where you can collaborate. Maybe you're facing an issue in Office 365, right? You can go to the Microsoft Tech community and you can just mention your issue, right? And you'll be getting real-time responses from the Microsoft engineers. So within Microsoft, what happens is every engineer is asked to visit the tech community once in every 3 to 4 hours, and they have been asked to respond to the questions. I recently attended the Tech Summit in Bangalore, and they were showing how they keep responding and what are the kind of questions they get in tech community. There has been a lot of doubts which I've asked on Microsoft Teams, because if you think about this application which I showed you, right, so it loads very slowly, right? It takes some time to load, and there was a query which I raised that, right, see this application which you have introduced is very slow. Is this the same case for, have you heard this from your other consumers and all? And I got a reply within 3 to 4 hours saying, yes, so this is something which we've been noticing and we are working on it. So whatever issues which you're seeing in your tenant, or maybe some user is saying that this is broken, right? So you can just post that in the tech community and see what Microsoft engineers have to say for that, right? And the Office 365 help and training is for you to learn about Office 365. The fast track service is to quickly onboard you as a customer to Office 365. So if at all you're looking for this, you can just approach the fast track service within Microsoft, and they're going to help you to quickly onboard you to Office 365. So Microsoft Mechanics. So this is a really great place for you to learn a lot about mainly the new features in Office 365. So this is a small YouTube channel. You can just Google Microsoft Mechanics. So you'll be getting a lot of videos wherein Jerry Chapman, so he's the director for Office 365, where they make some 15 minutes video on all the new features, wherein the senior program manager from let's say from Office, let's say you want to understand how Microsoft Teams work, right? There is a small video for 10 to 15 minutes on that. So that's just there. You can start working on it. You can just see those videos. Maybe you're not really a guy who wants to spend some 75 minutes to 1 hour seeing some videos, right? So these videos will be really helpful. So Microsoft Virtual Academy. So once again, this is a place for you to learn a lot about Office 365, and this Office 365 roadmap is nothing but a place where you can go and see what is the roadmap which Microsoft is working on for Office 365, right? As I initially said, Microsoft really wants to be transparent to its customers and what they are working on and what is really coming up in the future. So you go to the roadmap, you can see what is coming up next in SharePoint, or what's coming up next in Exchange Online. So the complete roadmap is given there. So I'm almost towards the end of my session. A general recap. So I believe it's been a very long session, right? So I just started with giving an introduction on what Office 365 is all about. Then we understood the features and services in Office 365. I spoke about Exchange, SharePoint, Skype for Business, PSTN, and all those things. And then there was a small demo on the Office 365 Admin Center. Then we saw what is new in Office 365, and then I showed you some demos on the Office 365 groups, Planner, Teams, the Secure Score, first release program, and all. And then we spent few minutes talking on identity management. So that's a useful link there. So if at all you want to understand more about Office 365, so please use this link. So this is the a roadmap for Office 365, right? So this is what Microsoft is working on for the year 2017. What are their plans? What are they are working on, right? You can also visit the Office 365 roadmap website to get some better insights on this. So finally, it's time to conclude. So Office 365, of course, it's the future of productivity, because uh, I believe from whatever I showed you today, the demos and all, you can just imagine if you start using that for your day-to-day work, right? It can definitely enhance the way you work and you will be more productive, okay? So Office 365 is loosely coupled, but it's a consistent set of services. Yeah, of course, that's a true statement to make. Okay, and any new capabilities, right? So let's take SharePoint as an example, right? So when you see SharePoint Online, right, before that service comes to the on-premises version of SharePoint, let's say before that service shows up in SharePoint 2016, it's already showed up in Office 365, right? So any new feature or capabilities will come to Office 365 first, right? So yeah, cloud computing can change the role of IT, but it doesn't supersede it. Okay, which means that still you need a person to manage all these services, right? It's not possible that so everything is there. Maybe I do not want the SharePoint guy, I do not want the Exchange guy, just one guy can take care of everything. That's not the case, right? So still you need someone to manage all these services, right? So at last, of course, Office 365 is really huge and it's tremendous. It's everywhere. So it's a skill set which every IT guy out there should be aware of, right? It's good to have in your CV, and so wherever you go for any job openings today, I think Office 365 is mentioned as a skill set there. So that's a link to my articles on Office 365, and if at all you're planning on doing any certification on Office 365, you need to write the 7346 exam or 7347 exam. So those are the details for the certification, right? So I'm done. So if at all you guys have any questions, I have few minutes left. You can just put your questions in the chat window. All right. I believe you guys all gain some better insights for yourself, right? So please let me know your feedback. So if at all there are if at all there is no questions, I'm good to close. Yeah, that's my thing. So the licensing and migrations, guys, so what I can do is I can plan a different session, but if at all, a quick thing to tell on migrations is, see, if at all you're planning from migrating from SharePoint on-premises to Office 365, right, so there is no direct method to do it. You only have to rely on third-party tools. Okay, that is because you're not going to have access to anything on the back end. There are a lot of third-party tools like Metalogix or ShareGate or AvePoint. There are so many vendors there, so you have to approach them, and they are gonna. I'm just recently working on a migration project, so wherein we are using ShareGate to migrate all the contents. About licensing, right? So it depends on the plan which you want to subscribe for. Let's say if I'm just googling Office 365 plans, right? So I can get all the plans. So before you want to move towards Office 365, right, you need to have an understanding of what exactly the business or your customer is looking for, right? We have various plans like this, right? And so the numbers which you see here is per month. I am running the E5 plan, which is 2315 Indian rupees per month. So this is the highest plan, and I get all these services at a part of this plan. As I already said, you need to talk to your business and you need to understand what is that they are looking for from Office 365, and depending upon that you can choose your plan. Okay. All right, so thank you so much. Is it possible? Yeah, of course. So this presentation as well as the video recording would be shared, and I'll just give the link to everyone so that you guys can learn for yourself. And in detail, and in future I'll also be planning few more sessions on Office 365 so that you guys get to gain more insights on Office 365. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for attending today's session. Bye bye.